Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at Venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Christian Moore back to Jack Goodchild on the blue line. He manages to get it wide to Jacob Minter. Goodchild with the shot, and the Slough Jets are taking the lead on the power play with 23 seconds remaining. And Jack Goodchild has Kane Russell with the shot cross goal. No need for the save from Lorne. And Campbell has found himself on. And it's 3-1 to the Delta Chieftains. They have hit like quickly. Hello and welcome to Zero Pucks Given, the UK Ice Hockey Podcast, hosted by me, Ben Hyde.
And me, Katelin.
Evening, mate, you okay?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm quite excited, actually, because the last time that someone threw to this guy on a sort of a production like this, it was Claire Balding.
Yes.
I am not Claire Balding, unfortunately. But we're absolutely delighted to welcome Seth Bennett. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
Cool.
Well, to be fair, mate, when I saw you, come up, I was watching the Olympics, and I was aware of your coaching prowess as well, and I was like, this is a great guest, and especially after the Olympics. So is this the only podcast that you're doing thus far since you've been back?
Yeah, I don't get many chances to do these things these days, so it's always good fun. Whenever there's the opportunity, there's always a chance to chat about hockey. That's always a win for me. I
guess we can call that #exclusive.
Yeah. Well, you can decide afterwards whether I was a good guest or not. I think that's the thing, isn't it?
Oh dear. But I mean, we have to start with the Olympics. Really, it was as a tournament as a whole. I think it was incredibly successful. I know there was a lot of trepidation, particularly about hockey with the arena. Would it be ready? Was the jumbotron actually an iPad? There was a lot of stuff that was kind of going on about it, but. I mean, for you, from your point of view as a commentator, how did you find the tournament as a whole and then the hockey in specifics?
Singularly the best tournament I've ever commentated on by a mile. Bearing in mind that's my 4th Winter Olympic Games. So I did Sochi when the last time the NHL players were there. That was my first one. But, I mean, this was just unreal. In that first Canada game, Crosby to McDavid to McKinnon, when you get to say those players' names together, when that first power play unit came out, and you throw in Makar to the mix, all of a sudden, it's like you're playing NHL, whatever era you want to call it. All of a sudden, you've cheated. You've put all the best players together on a team. And that was amazing. And then you have that at the start. And then as we went on, the hockey started to get super competitive. And when we went through that run of the quarterfinals and then into the women's bronze and gold medal games, and we had 5 overtime games on the bounce, it was just like, you kept getting to the end of the game and looking at each other going like, oh my God, it is not going to get better than this. It's not going to get better than this. And then it blooming well did. I mean, it was amazing. And to cap it off with that final. And, ironically, the first 10 minutes was some incredible hockey played. Like the way, the speed they moved the puck, the speed that they were moving at, the thought processes, all the rest of it. But actually, there was a load of crap in there as well. And, these great players on the biggest stage of all, they're missing empty nets. They're missing 5-foot passes. Because of the speed and the tempo and the pressure and everything else, they became mortals.
Yeah.
And in overtime, if you are any head coach in the world, you pretty much go, yeah, McDavid, McKinnon, Makar, come on, you pick anybody else. Any other 3 players in the world, we'll take you on. Yeah, on that play, McDavid goes 1-on-3, loses the puck. Makar goes for a pinch where he doesn't quite get there. And then McKinnon, for whatever reason, never goes hard on the puck on the wall. And they give up that 3-on-1 going to the net. And I don't know what Jack Hughes is going to say about that shot, but I'm not sure he intended to go 5-hole on it from there. It felt to me like he was going either just above or just below the glove on that one side. So I think that's a great thing for everybody, isn't it? That when you look at it on the biggest stage, even the greatest, and they might be some of the, has there ever been a better skater than McDavid? People may say yes. I've never seen that player play. At the end of his career, Cale Makar will be a position-defining defenseman, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, it was incredible.
You said obviously like this was your favourite tournament of the Olympics you've done so far. What was your favourite game out of the tournament?
I think probably it was the Canada-Czechia game. I thought that was incredible. And then, there's a bit of vanity in that as well, because I think I did a decent job on the game-winning goal. I thought I did a better job actually on the game-winning goal there than the game-winning goal in the final. But it came together really well. But also, it was 2 games back-to-back there. So the way that it worked is we would do one game and we'd get like 90 minutes to 2 hours in between the 2 games. So you imagine that Canada-Czechia game where there was the late drama, there was the late goal, and then there was the overtime. And then, like, in the overtime, the goal was such that nobody really expected it to happen. And then it happened. And you're like going, I think if you looked at Mitch Marner, he didn't expect to get the space he got. And then all of a sudden he was like, well, hey, I may as well score the goal now. Now I'm here. So he did. And so we sat in the studio, and the pair of us, Kent Simpson and I, we just sat there and go, what have we just seen? That was absolutely incredible. At which point we're like, oh, God, if we don't go now, we're not going to get any dinner. So it was one of these moments where, like, practicalities of life all of a sudden sort of kicks in. So we jump up, run, and go and get our dinner. And we were in Salford. We weren't in Milan. We were sitting in the studio in Salford. So we walk out into a grey and raining Manchester night and walk across into the main BBC Sport building up onto the 5th floor, go and grab whatever was there, and try and figure out how do you go from like that high to start another game, which was the USA-Finland. And then that delivered in just the same way, where the Finns were brilliant and then the Americans did what they were doing. And again, I go back, and it is a little bit of vanity, but you always want to get it right. And the commentary for the goal that the USA scored was something along the lines I'd said that Quinn Hughes is one of the best in the world at this. And it says he button hooks and turns back up the wall, starts heading towards the blue line, and then he walks down and shoots and scores off the post. And you know when you just like go, it's brilliant, because I knew who it was. I knew I'd got it, like, on the shot, I knew I'd got it. Yeah. And I knew it had gone in straight away as well. And so I think those 2 games back-to-back, I think, for me, was amazing. And then you want to throw the women's game, the women's final in there as well. Like, it's so hard, right?
There's so many good ones.
Yeah, and you've got, like, you've got Hilary Knight scoring that goal when she did. Like, I've known Hilary Knight from an interviewer, athlete perspective since before Sochi. I've been out to North America and filmed with her, and done numerous radio interviews with her as well. So for her to get that opportunity when she did, and to be fair, she'd had a tournament where she was pretty anonymous, and then she breaks the record when she does, and that was absolutely amazing.
I actually think the women's hockey was the most impressive thing for me across the whole tournament. And the fact that now a lot more people in the UK are aware you can watch PWHL live on YouTube free. The stats of the women's game in the UK, the crowd stats are absolutely flying up, which is brilliant to see. And it's almost like, the way I kind of define it is, my daughter, as much as she's a hockey fan, she can't watch NHL hockey because she says it moves too fast for her.
Yeah.
and she can't keep up. So for me, and then you kind of look at the women's game. That's kind of more like watching the British level of hockey, where the speed is a little bit down, but you can appreciate the skill level so much more, and the speed is a little bit lower. So I really, really enjoyed watching the women's hockey throughout the tournament.
And yeah, you look at players like Abby Murphy. Like we joked a lot in the commentary box about her because she's one of those great players because you hate her. If you played against her, you hate her. She's in your face. She's mouthing off at you. And then she makes you look stupid with a ridiculous bit of skill.
Yeah.
And she might be a game changer in women's hockey, particularly as it's becoming more and more physical. And that they're allowing full contact pretty much. She is brilliant for the sport. But then you look at some of the younger Swedish players that sort of came through and had really, really good tournaments. Hilda Svensson was one of them, and Nyland Pearson, another one, just another player that just absorbed minutes as we went through the tournament, and you just saw her get stronger and stronger and stronger. And then you looked at the Swiss team, and the Swiss team, they were a pleasant surprise. Nobody expected them, with what they had, to do as well as they did. And again, you talk about shared journeys. I remember commentating in Sochi on Alina Mueller's first goal in the Olympics as a teenager. She's now 27. So she was 15 in Sochi. And she scored, I remember the first goal, and it was a big deal. And you talked earlier about Claire Boulding. Part of the job when you're commentating on sport on the BBC is you've got to find stories that are going to interest the other 4.8 million people that have not watched hockey for 4 years, or maybe never have watched hockey. And part of the litmus test for me is if I can get the people that are working on the programs into it, if they're interested, if I can sell Hazel Irving a story hook that when she's talking to me on air, she sounds knowledgeable about it, and she can give something back to the story, if you like. That's great, because Hazel's an unbelievable operator. Just amazing, like the way she remembers stuff. And she'd like say, "Oh, Seth, and you remember Alina Mueller? I mean, we remember her as a 15-year-old in Sochi." You're like, "How the hell do you remember that?" Like, you've done X number of Olympics, snooker world championships, and everything else since then, but you still remember this little stuff. And so Alina Mueller doing what she did when she did it, that was another amazing thing, I think, for me, which was really cool. And you never tire of telling those stories.
No, your encyclopedic knowledge of not only players in this country but all over the world, men's, women's, all sorts of levels. Did that kind of affect the research that you had to do for an upcoming Olympics, or is it all there, or is there a lot of preparation that goes into it?
No, it's a lot. Like, I reckon it's probably 4 or 5 hours a team, and there were 22 teams in the tournament. And where it's really difficult, actually, is I don't get to watch a lot of NHL hockey. It's just, unfortunately, it's too late.
There's not enough hours in the day, is there?
Yeah.
Do what you do, plus watch that as well.
And it's really difficult because there are other people who do watch absolutely tons of it. And, you have to accept that if you happen to get a Dallas Stars fan watching and you're doing a Finland game, they might know a bit more about it than you. They might know more about that recent history of the team and of those players, because you can't look who every line mate is that they've played with over the past 18 months. You can't go into that level of detail, because I go back and, when we're talking about audiences, in terms of terrestrial telly, I think the biggest audience was somewhere in the region of 4 or 5 million people. So of those 4 or 5 million people, how many of them are hockey fans? You might say 200,000, maybe.
Yeah. I
don't know that there would be more going and watching hockey on a weekly basis in the UK. There may be more kind of casual fans than that. So actually, you kind of have to not worry too much about the mainline hockeyers. You have to acknowledge that actually what you're doing is you're broadcasting to a much bigger audience who you would love to fall in love with the sport that you love.
Yeah.
And if you look at, Tim and Ed, who did all of the all of the snowboarding and the tricks and all the rest of it, the half pipe. They do that so well. I've got no idea what a frontside 1480 rail grab, whatever else they could. I've got no idea what any of that means. But do I sit and watch it and think, oh man, this is so cool?
Yeah.
Because they bring that energy and that love of their sport and that passion. And I think if when Kent and I were doing the games, I'd like you to feel like you were sitting there with us watching the game. Maybe you got a beer in your hand and we're talking about it. And sometimes we agree and sometimes we disagree. But we're there and we're watching this game together and we're all loving the fact that we're getting a chance. And there were moments in that Olympics where we just sat there grinning at each other like, oh my God, can you believe this? How good is this hockey?
Would you prep for, obviously, the teams and all the details and stuff, but for particular moments? Because obviously, that at some point there's going to be a moment that's going to be shared all over the internet and your voice is going to be on there and what you say is what kind of makes the moment legendary. Do you prep anything for that or does it just come in the moment?
I never do. I just can't. I can't do that because I think if I did, I'd just cock it up.
Real.
Yeah, you'd say you'd stutter out or something.
Yeah, you got to feel it, and you got to be. And I know people that do that. And it's funny. I was having. I got trolled by some North American who thought they'd taken my commentary on NBC. You know nothing about hockey. You've got to know that the gap between the legs is called the 5-hole, and you've got to know that high in the net is called top shelf. You don't know any of this stuff. And I was like, okay, mate, thank you. I appreciate that. Anyway, it turned out it was somebody else who had a British accent, and he assumed it was me. I appreciate the feedback. It was very, very good of him to bother. But it was interesting because actually one of the things, we got into a conversation, and it wasn't a bad-tempered one or anything like that. But talking about the difference between a North American commentator where there is an expectation that you have a signature goal call. Like, he shoots and scores, or he lights the lamp, or something like that. And they will do it for every single goal. And it doesn't matter whether it's 1-0, 7-0, 25-0. They like, red light comes on, and it's almost like you press a button, and all of a sudden, he scores! That kind of thing. And my view is actually like, that's crap. Because, and that's not me saying they're bad commentators. They're not. They're amazing commentators, and they're so good at what they do. But I think there's a real art to being able to capture that moment as it's happening. Not, they've scored, so I'm now going to give you a 3 or 4 second phrase. And then I'm going to say the thing that people are going to remember for a lifetime.
Yeah.
If you can do that in the moment, then that for me, that's the skill. That's where you get your great commentators.
I guess that's also where it shows how big of a hockey fan you are because you're showing the emotion through your voice.
Yeah, I think so. Though, I mean, some people will just say I get excited at anything. But I've been doing it for a long time. Like my first ice hockey commentary was in 1998. I'm just very lucky that
Katelin's like, I weren't born, is what Katelin.
Yeah, I wasn't even thought of.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the bit when you realise that actually you've been around for a while, and I've done a lot of different things and a lot of different sports, and I think that doing hockey to me is always the treat. In my career, I've very, very rarely earned my money by commentating on hockey. It's always been a passion, something that I did just for fun. But I also always recognised that it kind of gave me everything that I had in terms of that was my opening, that was my first opportunity to work in the media. I met my wife through ice hockey as well. So I think that all of these things, it's important to me. And it's important that, when every 4 years when we get a chance to go on the BBC and showcase our sport, I try and do it to the best of my ability that other people can go, actually, you know what, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that looking at as you said, the figures, the viewing figures were terrific for it as well. The next big thing, which is, I suppose, we've spoken quite a bit since we organised this about the million-dollar question is, can Britain get there? So I know that when we've had Henry Stalens on here before, we're talking about the growth of British hockey and all the things they've done within the different organisations to try and make it a little bit better for everybody. 2026, they got really close, especially the women got really close to qualifying. But 2030 is the target. One, do you think they can do it? And two, what do you think will be the uprising within especially within the media world if they do?
It would be the biggest single thing for the sport in this country. Full stop. There wouldn't be anything bigger than Great Britain getting to an Olympic Games. Just the coverage, the amount of coverage. And people will have been frustrated during this Olympics that hockey kept moving. It was on BBC Two, it was on BBC One, it was on, and then all of a sudden it would disappear off onto iPlayer, and then they'd maybe hold it back for half an hour because they had some live whatever else it was. If GB were there, then every game would be live. Every game would be front and centre. There would be features on every player. It would be such a massive thing for the sport. I think, unfortunately, for the men, I think it's going to be really, really difficult. There's just there's so many teams in between where GB are and where they want to be. And it's not that they can't get there. It's just that the qualifying, when it comes, is so hard to get the team that you want out there that can go and deliver a performance, knowing that you're probably going to have to beat the Danes or the Latvians, or you're going to have to go away. I remember being in Cortina and having to beat Italy in Italy just to get to the next qualifying round. I remember when they went in 2000 and I'm trying to think when it was 2013. They ended up having to go to Japan in the second qualifying round. They won in Japan and then went to Latvia and had to go and win in Latvia. Latvia had like Sanders Ozolic patrolling the blue line. His size of a blooming house. He was about 6'5" and 240 pounds at that point, but he could still zing a pass across two zones harder than anybody else could shoot. So I think that's going to be the challenge. I actually think that there is an opportunity with a generation of women's players that are starting to come through, that if you invested the time and the money into a GB women's team, and it would have to be serious money and serious time, and find a way of doing that, and that might be promoting, finding a pathway for girls to go and play Division 1 hockey in North America. It might be a pathway to placing girls with the best programs in North America. It might be finding a GB 16s girls team that you work with for 5 years. I think there's an opportunity there, because I think eventually they will extend the women's tournament to replicate the men's tournament.
Yeah.
And as the number of teams expands in that, then I think that's where GB maybe could sneak in, and it would be an amazing tale. I coached a girl for the last few years called Olivia Bath, and she's 14. And at the end of last summer, she decided to go and play in Vancouver and go and play girls hockey. And she's had an amazing year, and she's got some of the biggest prep schools in North America watching her right now. She was a captain of my under-14s team in Leeds, and she won the national championship. And she was the only girl at the national championship that raised the trophy above her head as a captain of the team. And I thought that was a really important moment for her within her hockey career, to show that, hey, I'm every bit as good as every other person that's playing, not just in this league, but I'm better than 99% of you. But she went away with the GB18s as the youngest player in the tournament, and she was the second top scorer.
Wow. And
you just go, like, I know that 12 months ago she just got into the GB16s girls team, and you knew that, like, it's coming. This is coming, and she's going to be an incredible player. And she's got a chance. Like, she's got a chance of going and playing in the PWHL, with where she is right now, with where she can go. And you've got to lean into the players that can do that. And there are, 3 or 4 of them that are starting to come through around the same age group that potentially, if we can encourage and help and point in the right direction, then maybe there's a chance for that women's team to have these younger players that can help some of the old guard get onto that next level.
Yeah, I've always said I think it would be The sport's never going to get another Mighty Ducks or anything like that that's going to get people really into it. Heated rivalry has been great for spectators.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really, going to encourage too many people to play. But that for me, GB getting to the Olympics, either the men or the women, that's going to be the next big boost for the sport.
Yeah. No, totally agree.
You mentioned, obviously, so you mentioned you're a coach as well. When did you start doing that? To take away from the commentating.
I started coaching when I was 18. I'm 47 now, so long time ago. I was a terrible player. I started playing way too late. Hockey in Sheffield, which is where I'm from, started when I was, 12, 13. 1991, when we'd had the World Student Games and the Steelers came to town, and it was the hot ticket. Everybody wanted to go, and nobody really knew anything about playing ice hockey outside of what they'd seen on Grandstand. Queen's Road in Sheffield was a dive of an ice rink, which had got poor level of hockey, and you would go there, for a skate, but, you would never go and watch the ice hockey there, really. There might be 150 people there, but that's it. All of a sudden, the Steelers were doing, by Christmas, when they played that game, I think it was against Sunderland, and they ended up with 12,500 people in the arena with extra seats in there. And that was something. And it captured my imagination, my little brother and my family, and we were hooked. And so we started to go and watch on a regular basis. And I was kind of begging my mum, I'd like to play. Well, I'll buy you some skates when your feet stop growing. So, thanks, Mum. It's only in hindsight now I recognise that, that's such a funny thing. And so far against kind of like player development and what have you, because you need to learn as early as you possibly can. It wouldn't have made any difference with me. I would never have had the skills to go on and be a really good player. But I'd fallen in love. And for me, that's just something that I recognise very, very quickly. And when I finished school at 18, I always wanted to be a broadcaster. But I didn't do particularly well. And so I thought, right, I'm going to have a year out. And I'm going to go and play hockey for a year. And so I ended up going over to North America to be an au pair. And the little boy I looked after, he was 8, and he played hockey. We were matched on hockey. So I ended up coaching his team over there and I coached his football team, I coached his ice hockey team, and then started coaching. And then when I came back, I coached a little bit in Bradford. And during that time, that was when I began broadcasting, and I couldn't, because I was working every Saturday and Sunday, either at the hockey or at the football or doing whatever else needed doing. It meant that I didn't really coach a great deal again until I got a little bit older. And then when my son started to play, when he was 6, we got him skating, and ended up getting back on the ice and doing some coaching. And it's so funny because, I'm so far away as a coach from anything I could ever have done as a player, but also from any way in which I was coached as well, in terms of the style and what I want and how I want the teams to play. And it's really interesting because I've probably become a massive evangelist as to how hockey should be taught and how hockey should be played, and have all of these sort of, people probably think I'm crazy, but these crazy ideas of how we can make the most of the ice time. I think every time I hear people moan about the lack of ice time, I just think you're not trying hard enough. I'll be running a session later on today. There'll be somewhere between 40 and 60 kids on the ice. And they're not, little kids. There'll be, some of those kids will be guys that are going and playing with the GB18s. There'll be 4 or 5 of those guys that'll be on the ice later. But there's ways in which you can utilise the ice when you're there, so it replicates being in the game. There's no game of hockey that is played using, the 200 by 85 or the 60 by 30 at any one time. It's played in these little quarter zones or half zones. So if you can train and replicate those half zones, now all of a sudden you can get more kids on the ice doing more things. And so that's one of the things that we do a lot of. And I spend a lot of brain power trying to come up with different ways as to how you keep the kids occupied and learning and doing the right things and playing under pressure all the time and being comfortable when they have possession of the puck, and just trying to convince them, like, hey, we've got the puck. It's so hard to win back. Let's keep it. Let's play with it. Let's have fun.
Is there something within your coaching that kind of allows for the vast amount of kids that are playing this sport? Obviously not similar to what they do in America. You know, not everyone's going to get to play in the NHL. Not everyone that's learning to play at this level from being 6 years old up to 18s, they're not going to play in the elite league. Is there something different where you can sort of say to them, look, you could be a good level NIHL player or a good level NIHL conference player, let's push you towards there? Or is everybody trying to overachieve?
I think it's really hard because I think at 9 and 10 and maybe up to 15, I think everybody still harbours a dream of maybe making it professionally. Mm. I think in reality, you can tell at 12 or 13, most of the kids that are going to go on and make a real go of it. And it's not to do with skill. It's not to do with skating. That has a place, but it's to do with mentality. It's to do with desire. It's to do with their approach to what they do. And I've just had a lad who was great. He was GB16. He's just decided that he doesn't want to play anymore. He was GB16 last year. And he's just decided that he doesn't really want to play senior hockey. And he started doing his apprenticeship, and hockey doesn't fit in his life anymore. He was a 6'2" right shot defenseman. Like, there's a lot of coaches that would really be interested in having him as a 22, 23-year-old if he would have wanted to go through and do that. And he had enough talent that he could have gone and done that. But it wasn't for him. And he wasn't willing to do the amount of work that's required for the relative meager gains that you're going to get. Because that's it, right? It's a life. You have to live the life. And, you know, I probably never realised it at the start of the journey for my son, but now I recognise just how much he's had to sacrifice along the way to get to do the things that he's done. And he's done some amazing things, and, you know, he's got to play in the Youth Winter Olympics. He's got to play for GB as an underager at 16, underager at 18s, underager at 20s. Like, he's had amazing opportunities. He's playing some really good minutes in the National League right now as a 16-year-old. And that just, you know, like, that doesn't happen very often. But you want to see the schedule that he's on himself. Like, it's not to do with me.
Yeah.
Like, gets up in the morning, what he eats every day, how he prepares himself every day. Game days, up at 8 o'clock in the morning, goes for a walk, comes home, has breakfast, has a stretch, you know, does all of this stuff, knowing that, like, last weekend was back from Basingstoke at 2 a.m. But then on Sunday does exactly the same thing all over again. And that's the mundanity of it all, isn't it? It's the, you don't recognise in professional sports that that's the hard work. It's not the games. It's not the training. It's everything else that you need to do, you know, where you arrive and you do your 170th warm-up of the season. And it's the same thing, you know, because warming up for training is the same as warming up for a game. And you have to do it again, because if you don't, your body's not going to be ready to get the most out of the session where you're on the ice. And I think that's where I'm lucky that I've seen a lot of different professional sports and lots of different athletes. And so you recognise that, you know how hard the work is. And I think it's for the kids, that's the difference. And you know, like, to be a good NIHL 1 player, yeah, there's a lot of kids. If you're a good under 14s or a good under 16s player, you can be a good NIHL 1 player.
Yeah,
if you want to go higher. Yeah,
because we've got.
If you want to go higher than that, then it's more.
Yeah, it's more out of your time, not just hockey, is it? It's the other stuff.
Yeah.
Because we have to keep all of these leagues full of players at every level.
Yeah.
Because you know, we focus on the third tier because we're an NIHL 1 South podcast, but, you know, Katelin's been to watch some NIHL 2. We've seen the Steel City Showdown where you get the 2s and the 1s together, and it's fantastic. But that's like 4 leagues, and the National League, the Elite List, it's like 6 leagues. You've got to keep filling these leagues with players.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the worry of fans at our level is that when this I'd probably go to say like a golden generation of players that we've got that we watch that have been in the game for 10, 15 years, are now all getting over 30, mid 35. You know, what's coming next? And
don't worry.
Yeah, you've told me not to worry.
Don't worry, because what's coming could be better, and that's exciting. Because last night I watched an under-12s game in Leeds, and we've got 2 under-12s teams, and they're in the same league, they're in the same division, and we played 4 lines, so they change on the buzzer every minute. So we had 44 kids playing under-12s hockey on a Tuesday night in Leeds, and it was so exciting because guess what? Half of them can blooming well Michigan. The ones that can't Michigan, they're trying to Michigan already, and they try stuff that. I think about when I first started to play, the only way I could get the puck off the ice was shovel it on my backhand side. Like, these guys will go bar down and not even think about it at 7. and they have all of the tutorials to do whatever they want on YouTube right now. They look at what Conor McDavid does and thinks it's normal. They think it's normal. That's just the way it is. They look at a Zegras penalty shot and they just think, well, yeah, that's just how you do it. And they're willing to try all of that stuff. And going back, as coaches, like, that's where we have to encourage them, particularly at those younger ages, you know, anything below 15, like, focus on them just being as skilled as they possibly can, working as hard as they can, but loving the sport. And if you can get them to love the sport and they want to be at the rink and you capture their imagination there, then all of those leagues are going to be full of kids that are doing things that are even more exciting than what we've seen over the last decade.
Yeah, which is going to be terrific because the attendance is right across the board from the Elite League all the way down to NHL2, absolutely flying up week in, week out. So yeah, to have that amount of youth players coming through, as you say, I mean, and we sort of, you know, we won't put pressure on these kids by saying the names on here, but me and you shared quite a few names of, you know, these guys that are coming up from, you know, born even younger than Katelin. You know, it's exciting stuff for the future.
Don't make me feel old.
No, but it is, and you go down those lists of those players. You know, I look at my club, and you know, from Leeds, I think we've got 5 in the GB18s team, and 2 of those boys came through Bradford. Liam came through Manchester. He started at Blackburn, then moved to Manchester. And then you had Eggers, who started in Grimsby, had a bit of time in Hull, and then he moved to Leeds on the first day that Leeds opened. And you have Jonas, who started in Manchester and then had a little bit of time in Nottingham, and then a brief stay in Sheffield, and then ended up in Leeds. And, you know, you see these kids starting to thrive. And I'm lucky, like I've coached a lot of those kids in international tournaments, and we got to go and play in Chicago. I can't remember whether I told you this, but we got to play in Chicago a year last November with the 2009 team. And it had Dara Sportforth, Danny Harrison, Alex Rushby, Eggers Vengus, had Jonas, Kingston McKenzie, within that lineup. They weren't the only ones, but those were the kind of main guys on that team. They played against the London Knights twice. And twice we played London tight for 2 periods, and then London ran away with it. In between the 2 games, we beat the Windsor Spitfires. The Windsor Spitfires were unbeaten in Canada to that point. We beat them 2-1. We went 1-0 down. We scored 2 goals in 90 seconds in the last 4 minutes of the game. We played against some of the top AAA North American teams in that tournament. We ended up getting to the semi-finals. So we finished in the top 4 of that tournament, which is one of the biggest in the US. That's when you know, like, we've got kids who can play, like, seriously play at a good level. I know Jonas has played in a lot of international tournaments, where there's one in Minnesota. And one of the teams, the Minnesota Lakes, had 3 kids that were in the top 10 of North American talent for 2009 age group. And at that point, you realise, like, the kids we have, to a point, they're there. They can compete. How do you move that to being 22, 23 and still able to compete? And that's the $1 million question, I suppose.
When you see the kids sort of making it that you've coached, do you sort of feel a sense of pride in yourself that you've sort of helped that kid get to where they are, even though as much of it is them, they'll all probably say coaches are a massive part of that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I always think you play a small role. They're saying it takes a village, right?
Yeah.
And there are a million better coaches than me on the planet. And they're all able to give way more to the kids. I know I can give them a load of time and effort and energy and enthusiasm and support to try and get to what they want to do. And I do, right? I think, when I look around in the National League lineup and I see the number of kids that have come through the different programs, like Elite British Select has been amazing as a program to take kids to international tournaments and let them experience going and playing abroad. And so, well, I'll give you the example of Finn Braden. Finn Braden, fabulous player. But I think he played England in Finland. I think he played GB in Riga. And then his next international tournament was a World Championship. If you compare that to some of the kids that are coming through now, they've played literally dozens of international tournaments. Where pitching up and being at these rinks with different referees and different players and different styles just is what it is. Mm-hmm. And they're okay with that. Everybody thinks the British team's rubbish. And then we always laughed that the first time we went to Chicago, again, we finished fourth. Did we finish third in the tournament? I think we made it to the semi-finals anyway. And every coach before the game was so good that there's a British team here. And then we beat them. And they wouldn't talk to us after the game. What I didn't realise is they were all paid coaches. And we were and we weren't beating them like a little bit. We were beating them. We were unbelievably strong in that tournament and played really, really well. And we just didn't realise every time the level kind of went up a little bit, we just got better. Right until we played against Fred Pellini's team. And we arrived at the rink and I'd never known Fred other than he was one of the first players that I ever saw play at the Sheffield Arena when Streatham were there. And Freddie goes, hey, I hear there's a British team here. And he comes over and he starts telling me all about when he played. I was like, Fred, I remember. I watched you play. Anyway, he was great value. But his team is from Michigan, from Orchard Lake. And we got beaten on 2 goals in the first period. And what USA Hockey did, they went from 3 periods to 2 periods because they didn't want you to play, like you could play 3 games in a day if you made it to the final. And that was against the rules. And so we've gone from being, and in the tournament, I think we outscored everybody else 3-1 in the third period because it took us a little bit of time, but there was no third period and we've gone 2-0 down. We hit the post late on and I think we lost 4-2 on an empty netter. But we've given them absolutely everything they could handle and then more. And they went on to win the tournament that year, which was great. But it is, like, you're so proud of what the kids have achieved. And just, like, when you see them around, they give you a high five and just say, hey, how are you doing? And they'll want to tell you about whatever it is that's going on. There's a kid that I coached from when he was 5 in Manchester. And he's playing in the Czech League now. He's only 14. It's his 14th birthday today. He dropped me a message just telling me that he's trying out with a different team over there. And it's great because I'm still seeing his little brother who's 6. He's still in Leeds with us and he's still learning the ropes and doing what he's doing. And I think you really appreciate that. Mario Vaxmansky is a name that you guys probably don't know. Man, he's so exciting. He's 15. He doesn't turn 16 till I think the early part of November. I remember when he was 6, I had his birthday ringed on the calendar because that was when he was allowed to play under 11s hockey. And Mario is born in Liverpool, and he's as Scouse as they come. He's been playing in Liberec like one of the best academies in Czech for the last 2 years. Fabulous player, and he's going to go. And I hope he says to Jamie Elson at the end of one of the games, "Hey, coach, can you see me goal?"
Do you think there is a? I said probably the last one because we know you've got to get on the ice tonight as well, so we don't want to keep you from that. Is there a next Liam Kirk? Is there a Brit that's going to get drafted in the NHL at some point soon?
It's difficult to say. Definitely yes. We have kids that can compete with the best in the world right now. There's one lad that's playing in Leeds right now who's as good as I've ever seen. And he's playing in all of the big tournaments all over the place. And you don't want to ever put pressure on him. But you just acknowledge that, like, occasionally you come across kids who are just different. Rory Hill is just different. He's a kid that he's a wonderful rugby player, league and union. He goes and runs in his athletics for his school and he wins all the races. He competes at a level that is just so far gone. You look at it and you just go, like, man, that's ridiculous. And so many programs have been in touch, and all the programs that get in touch and they look at it and they're all like, "Oh man, what a player!" But just imagine if he was ever coached properly. And that's their viewpoint. And it always kind of makes me laugh because it's like you're watching go and play in WSI, which is one of the best tournaments, and you see him score a goal where he's beaten 3 North Americans for speed, or he's beaten the Sweden team for speed, and he's gone top shelf on the goalie or whatever. And you just go, like, do you not recognise that this kid is just a really good player? And doesn't matter where he's learning his hockey right now. He has the opportunity to go on and go and play. But he's not the only one. That he is an alarmingly good talent, and so exciting to see where he goes. Hopefully he still has the love for the game when he's 15, 16, 17, and he gets the chance to go and play in all of those places. But there are a number. There's Kingston McKenzie playing right now in Sweden. Playing. He's a 16-year-old, doing really well. Edgar Zvengus, I think, for me, is the most elitely ready player that I've ever coached, and he could go potentially beyond that. He's 6'1", 6'2". He's growing into his body. He's big. He's strong. He skates well. And best, he's just an amazing human being. Just a great, at 16, 17, he's a leader on the Leeds Knights team. He'll be the guy that's on the bench tapping everybody and say, "Hey, come on, boys, let's go." And he's exactly the same when he drops down. And tonight we'll go on a training session. And as I say, like, we've got some really good players on that training session. They will kill each other for the duration of the training session. They will push and push and push and push and push. And they won't care. They won't be bothered whatsoever. And they come back to the line having just killed each other, killing themselves laughing. And that's what you want, isn't it, from the kids that are coming through. I think the hard thing in this country is, and I've spent a lot of time speaking to people in the elite league because I've known so many of them for so long. I don't know that there's a thirst or an appetite to have the next generation of British players ready and available. Then I don't think there's a desire to look at a good 16-year-old and work with them to make them into the next Robert Dowd. I think they want a finished project, a finished product, should I say, that they can stick on a fourth line and they can take some minutes. But I don't think there's a desire really, and I don't think there's a belief really. And part of the problem is the league is such a high standard that you need to be probably 20, 21 before you can even think about beginning to get into that league. Just because, how do you compete with guys that have got 200 games in the NHL, maybe 200 games in the AHL, maybe 400 games in the SHL, guys that played in the DEL? And this is the bottom end of the lineup. It's not necessarily like just the best player in the league. How do you make that transition where a 1-goal defeat from your mistake in September is the difference between the team winning the league and not winning the league. And coaches who could be out of a job, tomorrow on the strength of that, why are they ever going to take the risk? Because, hey, guess what? They develop you for 2 or 3 years. And God love Paul Thompson, because that's what he did. He just turned around and said, I don't care. This kid's got a bit of talent, Liam Kirk. I like what I see from him. And I'm going to make it my mission to give him every opportunity to get drafted. It's within the gift of every elite league coach to try and find the talent to do that. But why would they do that? Because what's the bonus for them? I feel in a very privileged position where I am, that in Ryan Aldridge, Leeds have got a coach that is willing to trust young players. And in the cup final, I was laughing. There was a moment in the cup final where I think on the ice for the Steel Dogs, there were more World Championship games than Leeds had National League games on the ice.
Wow.
When there was Danny, Dara, Eggers, Jonas and Sam Dunn against David Phillips, Jonathan Phillips, Cole Tudor. I can't remember who the other two were. I think Bjorkley Nordstrom and whoever the other defenseman was. But you just looked at it and you're like, actually, you know what? There probably is there. 100 and whatever World Championship games in those guys, 150, no, more than that, it'll be probably 270, 280, something like that. And Ryan threw the kids out there, and you know what? They had a pretty good game and did really. He only had 3 lines. He didn't have a choice, but he did it, and they all got a lot of ice time. And if you look at the last few weeks, I think Jonas scored 2 and 2. Danny scored 2 and 2. Dara's weighed in with a couple of points. Eggers has weighed in with a couple of points. Eggers has scored 10 goals already this year, a National League. He was meant to be the 10th forward at the start of the year. And that to me is what is exciting. When you see the kids come through and they take those next steps, and you see them start to score those points and contribute to whatever's next. There's the cup final next week. And it's going to be fascinating for those kids to go into that environment and just see how they do. How are they going to contribute in that? I hope I'm standing there at the end as a proud dad looking down at a Leeds victory. But you know what? I might just be looking down as a proud dad at seeing how the young guys have done and seeing how the team have fought really, really hard to get to where they are.
That's amazing, mate. Amazing. I definitely feel there's going to be a 2.0 in this somewhere.
Yeah.
We could go on for absolutely ages about not only obviously the junior coaching stuff, but more into the commentary and the broadcasting side of it, which we're both incredibly interested in as well. So I'll send you some clips of my commentary actually and see if you can give me a little bit of critique.
Yeah, you know what? That would be really good fun. Well, you know what I do now? I'm the course leader for sports journalism at Sheffield Hallam University.
Oh, bro.
Oh, wow.
So actually, one of the things I do is teach sports commentary.
Well, as I said before, the little technical glitch there, I think there's definitely a 2.0 in the future for this to discuss everything else that we haven't managed to get to tonight. And
yeah,
we really appreciate your time because you've got to get to the rink.
Feel free to edit me as much as you like as well. Don't I'm not precious at all whatsoever. I appreciate I absolutely wang on when I get excited. So
I like to do as little editing as possible.
Yes.
It just makes life easier, I suppose. Good. And if there's anything that you guys need, just let me know. It's no issue.
Oh, we appreciate that. Seth Bennett, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you again.
Anytime. See you soon.